Well, hello there. Today I am going to show you something that I have actually had a request from someone on my Mo Fun in the Kitchen. I'm in my kitchen. This is my bar in my kitchen, my counter. And I had a request for someone to show them how to make a pie crust. Now, it really hurts my feelings when someone says, oh, I just unfold the kind in the dairy case. Rude. If you're making a homemade pie and you're going to the problem, all the problem it's not even a problem, all the goodness to put the inside filling in, make your own pie crust. It is 4 ingredients. It's easy as pie to make a pie crust, and I'm going to show you how. Here's what you need. You need flour. Now, it's good to have a good pastry flour, but seriously, if you have flour, you can make a pie crust. It's good to have a pastry, but even just if you make a bread and you have good unbleached flour, that is good. Unbleached flour. This is pastry flour. I get my stuff in Amish country, and I get this good pastry flour. This stuff is like divine. This is not what I usually use or have used for years and years. I usually just use my bread flour, unbleached bread flour. I'll put it in the comments what I use, but this is just flour. You can just use all-purpose gold medal flour. It'll be fine, but white flour, but this is unbleached pastry flour. The next thing you will need is salt. It just takes a little bit of salt, but salt is necessary. The next thing I have used this for years. Some people use lard. Some people use butter. I use butter-flavored Crisco. Yes, Crisco. Maybe someday I'll be a representative for Crisco, but Crisco, butter-flavored Crisco. And the last thing you'll use is water, ice water. It's in this big cup because what else do you use these big cups for? Some of you probably use it for coffee, but I use ice water. Just get a cup of ice water. That's all you'll use. 2 of these things you have all the time, salt and ice water. Butter-flavored Crisco, you just buy a big tub of it and leave it on the shelf, and it's good to use in chocolate chip cookies too, but you use this for pie crust and flour. If you just get yourself some good pastry flour or some bread flour, because I'm going to get you making bread too, and then you use that for your pie crust. So that's what we're going to use. We're going to use 2 cups. This is for a 2 piece pie crust. So for this pie that we're making today, it's going to have a top and a bottom. So we're going to use 2 cups of flour plus some flour to sprinkle to roll. A little bit like this much of salt, 1 cup of butter-flavored Crisco, and 6 tablespoons of ice water. That's your recipe. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get our we have the ingredients. Now we're going to get all the stuff ready. So hang on a minute. I'm going to rearrange my stuff and we'll be right ready. Okay, now for the items that you'll need to make this pie crust, you'll need a bowl, medium size. You'll need a sifter. This is a sifter. It's really not a sifter. It's a strainer, just with little holes in it. If you don't have a strainer, you can just use a fork and fluff. I'll show you that as we're making it. Of course, you're going to need a pie plate, 8 or 9 inch, really doesn't matter. The pie I'm making is a peach pie today, and I want it a little bit deeper, so a pie plate, measuring spoons, a pastry blender. This is called a blender, but it's not a blender as you would think, like put stuff in and blend, but this is what you're going to, it's more of a cutter. It's called a pastry blender. Alternately, you could use 2 butter knives. Okay, so I'll show you that as we make things. A fork, everybody's got just a fork, you're not gonna eat it, but a fork, you need a fork. A rolling pin, this is my favorite kind of rolling pin. It doesn't have the pins at the end to roll, but just a rolling pin, whatever you have. If you don't have a rolling pin, you can use a smooth glass, like a drinking glass, you can do that, but a rolling pin. And a bar mop. This is a bar mop. Everybody needs a bar mop to, wipe your hands off or whatever. They call them bar mops. They're a dish towel, just something that's not fuzzy. You don't want fuzz in your food. Nothing worse than fuzz in your food. Awful. If you have cats, get them out of your kitchen, and always start with a clean kitchen and end with a clean kitchen. Rule number 1 in any recipe: start with a clean kitchen, end with a clean kitchen. So a bar mop is great. Wipe your hands off, get your grease going. So that's what we start with. Those are your tools. We'll call them tools. So you start with your ingredients. Okay, so we're going to start with 2 cups of flour into the bowl. Now for flour, you don't pack your flour in, you spoon it in. So you don't pack it in there, you just spoon it into the cup. And to measure it, you just fork it across the top like that. Fork it across so it's smooth. And you just pour it into the sifter, and you get 2 cups in there. Smooth into the thing. And then to that, we're going to add some salt. It's probably about no more than a half a teaspoon, but how much it is this much in your hand. It's more than a pinch. It's not a smidgen. It's between a fourth. I guess I can measure it. You'll get to know how much it is. Here's my spoons. Let's see how much it actually is. This is a half a teaspoon measuring spoon. It's not quite a half a teaspoon. So if you put a half a teaspoon in, that would probably be fine. But I just pour it right there in the center of my hand, just because that's the way it's done. So that much. And you put it right into your sifter. Now this is the fun part. You can make it snow. You take your sifter and you pound it against your hand and you make it snow. Can you see that snow coming out there? And you make the snow come out. And what it does, I'm going to bring it closer to the camera here. You see it snowing? And what that does is it takes any lumps that are in your flour and it makes them real fine. That makes a real fine pie crust. So it makes them real fine, and so it makes your pie crust flaky. A lot of things in life you don't want flaky. Like, oh, I don't know about that person, she's really flaky. But pie crust, flaky's good. So you just beat it like this until it comes out. And if you look in there, you'll see like little balls still left in your, see how there's like bigger balls in there? So they can't go through this because it's straining it, of course. So I'm beating this until it comes out, snowing, snowing, snowing. And you just let it snow. All that good flour and salt is coming through and going into your bowl. And you're just beating it on your hand until all those little balls are left in there in the strainer. And you're like, well, they're still good. Well, yeah, they're still good. See, it'll go down to look like that, some balls left in there. And then you just take your fingers and mix them till they are small enough to come through the strainer themselves. Like that. And then make the rest of the snow come through. So there you have it. And what you don't want to do is turn it over and let those come through. That's stupid. So you just let that come through and then you get rid of your strainer. Just, set it aside. There. So now we have this beautiful bowl of sifted flour and salt. So now we're going to add a cup of butter flavored Crisco. Just plop it right on top. Eeks! And plop that right in there. It's greasy and, buttery. Not good to eat just like it is, but boy, you add the rest of the goodness to it. It's delish. Make sure your fingers are clean. Fingers in cooking is just fine. So you get that all in there. Now this is where we're going to use our pastry blender. So now we're going to grab our pastry blender. like this, and we're going to take it in our bowl, and we're going to push down through the butter flavored Crisco and through the flour, and we're going to cut the butter flavored Crisco into the flour until it's all cut in. We don't really want to smash it, because if you smash it, that's like mushing it, and that's not going to make it flaky. We want to make it flaky. Now, if you don't have a pastry blender, like I said, you could use 2 knives. Well, how does that work? Let me show you. To get this off of there, you just take your finger in there. You got to make sure you don't cut it. These aren't really blades, but they are blades. So what you do is, if you don't have a pastry blender, take 2 butter knives and you crisscross them like this. I did this for years until I had a pastry blender, and my pies were great even then. So you go like this, chop, 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 and you just go through and you cross, 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 cross. Like this. Doo-doo. I'm gonna get an overhead camera. Cross, 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 and then, you know, turn the bowl and then cross, 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 cross. It works just fine. Pastry blenders are just a little more convenient. Plus, it's cool. I have a pastry blender. It's like, well, where's your pastry blender? Oh, right here in my drawer. It's just this little thing right here. So you get your pastry blender and you just go down, 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 and you kind of scoop around the side of the bowl just to, you know, mix them up. You're trying to keep it nice and fluffy, and you cut it till all that butter flavored Crisco is about pea size-ish in there. So it's mixing with the flour, and the chunks of stuff are about pea size. Now, I know I just told you that we were getting all the flour, that there's not little chunks of stuff, but now there is, because it's Crisco in there. So what that does is it takes all that little stuff, all the Crisco is getting wrapped in flour, and that's what's going to make it flaky. Okay? Oh, look at behind me. You can see my flags waving in the wind. It's just Veterans Day yesterday, and they're honoring the veterans out there. So this is what it's looking like. See how it's like crumbly in there? That's what you want it to look like. So if there's a bigger one, just chop it up. See how it's just kind of crumbly, and that's fine, because that's what's helping you get that flakiness. And you don't want a whole bunch of dry flour by itself. You want it mixed in. So you just and you can kind of take this and scrape the side of the bowl. And, oh, there's a big guy, chop him up. You don't want to smash, you want to cut. So that's why you scrape around the side of the bowl. See how that's just lovely. So when you get it to looking so it's like that, kind of like, then you just take your finger, scrape it off. Make sure all that goodness gets in there. Bang it off and get it all in there. Beautiful. Now, set that aside. Now comes the water. Now, you use water. If you're living in a place that is like high altitude or something like that, never made a pie there. If it's really, really humid outside, you probably use a little less water. If it's super dry where you are, like, I don't know, my sister Mary lives in the desert, I'll have to ask her. But by and large, you're going to use 6 tablespoons of water, and that is it. Don't add any more than 6 tablespoons of water. And pretty much you don't add less than that. Sometimes a little bit less if it's super humid, but never fear. So you're going to add them 2 tablespoons at a time. And you're not just going to be like plop. You're going to do like spreading it around. So it's ice water, because you don't want hot water to go in there and start melting the Crisco around, because you don't want it like, that's just not good. Again, flaky. That's the desire. So you're going to get 2 tablespoons. Oops. If you get a chunk of ice, don't super worry about it, but that's not the intent. So you sprinkle it around. 1. Oops, chunk of ice. 2. And then you get your fork. Remember the fork? And you just toss around. At first, you're going to be like, that didn't do anything. Yes. So toss it around. You're like, okay, it got a little wet. Then you do it again. And everything that I do, or not everything, but lots of things I do, you'll notice I count out loud, because you'll be like, where was I? Or the kids are running around. I don't have them here anymore, but the kids are running around and you're like, oh, was that 1, 2? Was that 3, 4? Just count it out loud, because when you say it out loud, everyone hears it and whatever. So 3, same thing, sprinkle it around. And 4. And then this one you'll start seeing, oh, it's starting to look doughish colored. And it's starting to kind of form a ball. And that's kind of your goal. You're kind of getting it all to kind of one corner of the bowl. I know it's round. There's really no corner of the bowl, but you know what I mean. The corner of the bowl. See how you're doing? Kind of getting it to go to that corner, and you're packing it down. Sometimes it sticks to the fork. That's okay. Just get it off without packing it together. You are packing it together, but you're not like creaming it together. That's not the point. And then, so we're at 4. So now we go 5. 6. Okay. So now we're gonna just get this all in a nice ball. Get all the dry mixed in with that wet water, and you get a nice ball of pie crust dough. Now, get your hand in a little bit of flour. Now, this isn't like bread where you're gonna knead. Oh, you can do that if you want the toughest pie crust dough ever you've ever made. So you get your hand nice and floury. And all you're going to do is make this a ball. You can use flour. You're not even going to use 1/4 of a cup. Just, a tablespoon or so, and make this a ball. If it's sticky, used a little bit too much, but that's okay because there's flour. Just get a little bit of flour in there. Make a ball. Ball of dough. Don't overwork it. Now, you have a ball, break it in 2. Don't be ridiculous. Don't get a scale out and weigh it. That's just silly. Just get yourself 2 nice balls of dough. If you don't have time to work this right now, something happens, somebody's crying, oh my gosh, I forgot, I have to go pick somebody up, just wrap it in some clear wrap or something, throw it in the refrigerator. It'll be fine for a little while. Okay, so you got these 2 balls. Good. And your hands are like, oh, sticky, or maybe there's flour on something. That's what the bar mop's for. Just wipe it off, or go over to your sink, wash your hands, whatever. Okay, so now I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff. Okay, now we get to roll. Roll, baby, roll. Okay, so you got your flour, and you're going to flour your tabletop, countertop, wherever you have a nice clean area to do it. And you get your rolling pin, and you're going to flour your rolling pin and the tabletop. And you want to flour that so it doesn't stick. So you get it nice, and you get your first ball out, and you pat it down, and you make it round. Again, you don't need to be ridiculous. Some people sell those mats. Oh, here's exactly the size of it. Pish posh, you know what round is. It doesn't have to be perfect. So get your flour. Some people like get a little cup of it and set it near you so you can do it, whatever. You want to use, don't be cheap on your amount of flour, but you don't want to like dry it out ridiculously so, but you don't want it sticking to the countertop. That's what you don't want. So get it good and floured, and you get your guy floured, and you roll a little bit more. You're not pushing real hard. Again, you don't want it melting, and then you turn it over. Put a little bit more flour on it, and give it a couple more rolls, and you want to roll one way, then the other way, and then the other way, and the other way, so it stays in a round shape. And then you get some more flour on it, because as you roll it out, that flour gets incorporated in. Then turn it over several times as you're rolling, and then get some more flour on. Get this guy out of the way, because you don't want to roll and teesh, things go on the floor. Not like I've ever done that before. Ask Tom. There's flour all over the kitchen every time I cook. But at least it's good cooking, and then, because the rule in our house is whoever cooks, the other one cleans up. So that's why I like to cook, because then I don't have to clean up. So oops, if you get too big and it falls apart, not a biggie at all. Just, just continue on. And you're getting this nice, beautiful shape. How big do you go? Well, how do you know? Well, you got to know what you're putting it in. So you grab your pie plate, ding, and you turn it upside down over top of it. And you say, I want it to be an inch bigger than the plate, because then it's got to go down inside there and have enough. So you put it over top and you're like, okay, I'm not quite big enough yet. So I need to continue. Okay, so this is rolled out about an inch bigger than the sides. I'm gonna lift it up and show you what that looks like. Not that you don't know what an inch looks like, but I'll just show you anyway. So here it is, rolled out, bigger than the plate. See, it's a little bit bigger on one side and a little bit misshapen. Not a big deal. We'll show you how to tuck that around. Okay, so now, this is not hard to do, but we'll just show you how to do it. So here's the pie plate. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick this up, the sides, and we're just gonna very gently fold him in half. And then pick him up and set him in the plate. And then unfold him. So he's in the plate. If something rips, just pinch him back together. It's just dough, just like Play-Doh. And you just fit him in there. So they fit in there. This one's a little misshapen, not a big deal. Just make sure it fits in there. Like this side over here is a little long. Let me see where you can see it. See, this side over here is a little bit long. Not a big deal, because we're gonna fold it into the other side. And when the filling gets in there and then the topping goes on, we roll it around and seal it up, and it's great. So this side over here is a little thin, a little short. That's fine. When we put the top on, we'll put a longer piece on and tuck it around. So there's the bottom. Now, if you're going to, sometimes pies, you need a pre-baked crust, so then you want this to look really pretty and poke it. So we'll do that on another day. But this is just the bottom of a two crust fruit pie. So this is what we do. Now we're gonna roll the other one out and get it ready to go on top of the fruit pie. This is a peach pie, like I said. So I'm gonna go and roll the other one out, and then I'll show you how to lay it on top of a fruit pie. Okay, now to finish this baby off, we made some peach pie. So this is my peach filling, which I'll get into some fillings on another day. But this peaches, I have just some frozen peaches. I have found that frozen peaches work great for pies. Take some frozen peaches and make sure they're thawed clearly. And then I add a cup of sugar and 1/4 of a cup of instant tapioca. Big deal. The tapioca will link all the juice together. And you let that sit for at least 15 minutes. So that's what I've done here. So I'm going to pour that into my pie, the bottom layer of the pie. Oh, you're just wanting to eat this right now, aren't you? You peach pie lovers. So whatever pie filling that you have ready, apples, cherries, anything that's going to get baked and need a top layer, you get that in here to this bottom. Blueberries, triple berries. Oh, just so many different things. Now, you're going to add some butter to the top of this, because, you know, what doesn't need butter? And you add about 6 plops of butter, maybe a 1/2 tablespoon at a time, on the top of it like this. Just plop your butter on there. Everything needs butter. I'm not Paula Deen, but for pies, they need butter. So you just plop a bunch of chunks of butter on there. Maybe this one's got 5. That's good. 5 chunks of butter like that. And then we're going to get that pie crust. Get your barm up. Course. So now I rolled the other pie crust out. And we're going to put that on top. So here's the other pie crust. Fold it. Get that right on top. Like this. Oh, that's a good view. There you go. And we're going to put it over top. Now we got this double layer here. So now what we're gonna do is, we got the top one over the bottom one, and we're gonna go goink like this, okay? So we're gonna go just over the bottom one and give it a little roll like this. Okay, turn and roll. Kind of sealing it in, so if the juices wanna come out, you're you bake in there and be good. And then we're gonna crimp it all the way around like this. Just take the top one, roll it onto the bottom one, all the way around. So if your circle wasn't a circle, not a big deal. It is now because it's round. Now, you're gonna take your fingers like this and go pinchy, pinchy. So you're gonna go like this, pinch, and then you put your thumb in the last one and your fingers around the next one, pinch, pinch, pinch. It's crimping your pie. Some people use a fork. There's all kinds of different methods, but we're gonna go round like this, and we're gonna crimp it closed. That again makes all those juices stay in there tight. This is for a double layer fruit pie. And when you're done, it looks like this. See those like this, see, boink, boink, boink. You see that? Yeah, I think so. Okay. Then, before it goes in the oven, there's a couple more steps here. And what you do is, you get your bowl that you had, you know, your flour or whatever, and you add a little bit of milk. What kind of milk? Don't matter. And first of all, you take your knife that you cut your butter and you cut some slices in the top because you got to let that steam out. And you cut some slices. I always just do the same thing. I always do 1, 2, 3, 4, and a couple of beautiful lines like that. And then you take your fingers, which are clean, of course, and you dab milk all over the top. You can use a pastry brush. I don't find it necessary. I find fingers are what God gave you to use. So I dab it all over the top like this. Get the tops, the edges. This gives a good, makes the crust just gorgeous. All over the place. How much milk's in there? I don't know, splash. All over like this. You can just paint your pie with milk all over like this. Then, of course, you grab that bar mop and wipe yourself off again. And then you get the sugar. And you sprinkle sugar all over the top. Because who doesn't need more sugar in their life? Ooh! Had a little ball of sugar there. Now it's beautiful. Okay. Isn't that pretty? Oh, diggity. Whew. Now, we're going to put it in the oven at 425. That's pretty high. And what it does is it gets that sugar starting to caramelize and brown up so beautifully. 425 for 15 minutes. In that 15 minutes, it gives you time to clean your kitchen up. And then when the timer goes off, you turn it down to 350 for, believe it or not, almost an hour. Like, you set it for 40 minutes and then take a look at it. And then you're going to want to make sure your peaches are crunchy, or if there's apples in there, they're soft. So for right now, we're going to put it in at 425 for 15 minutes, and we're going to clean up the kitchen. So, and oh, big thing. After that 15 minutes, we're going to cover the edges of the crust so these little beauties out here don't turn black. So that's the story. Get it in the oven, 425. Okay, so it's been 15 minutes. So let's take a look at him. He's in here. You see the edges are getting nice and brown. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little pie protector on the edges like this. And I'll show you that after I get out. I have another one. And it's going to protect the edges from getting burned, but lets the middle continue to cook. And what we're also going to do is on the rack below, we're going to add a cookie sheet with some foil on it to collect any drips. That'll save you from a lot of issues cleaning your oven. So we're going to leave that in there now. I turned the oven down to 350, and we're going to cook it for another, we're going to put the timer for 40 minutes. Oops. And we're going to let it go there for another 40 minutes. Okay, so what I have here is a pie I don't even know what they call it. This is a Pampered Chef. They have a bunch of different kinds out there. This is a pie edge protector. So when you get to that point in your baking, after 15 minutes, the edges are nice and brown. The middle still needs a browning and the inside still needs cooking. So you can either get one of these. They make them in silicone as well. Bunch of different brands out there. And after 15 minutes, you put this on there and it'll protect the edges from getting even darker while the cooking and the top of it gets baked better. Or if you don't have any of those, take some foil, make a long strip of it, and roll it up and just set it around like a little tent all the way around the edges of it so the edges don't get really dark. They'll obviously continue to bake a little bit more, which is fine. You just don't want them to get really dark. So get one of these. It's been a lifesaver. The foil sometimes falls off and it's a pain. Not a big deal. You don't want to cover the whole thing though, because you want the top center to still dry out a bit while the inside gets cooking. So after 15 minutes, you want to do that.
So once you're all done, your pie should look like this, a nice golden brown color with your recipe all done and it looking just gorgeous. Your fruit inside should be just perfectly soft and it should be sitting on your counter ready to cool and eat with some nice vanilla ice cream. Hope you love this pie crust and we'll do many more pies in the future. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and pass this Mo Fun in the Kitchen along to everyone you know. Thanks, friends.